Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. I am your host, Christy Eidelhuber. Welcome to Mirage Talks. Today, we welcome the founder of GTC 360 Advisors. This organization aims to provide next-level growth in commercial government marketplaces for companies, causes, and governments. He is here to discuss and answer the question, how to do business with the U.S. federal government. George Tagg Jr., welcome. Let's get started.
Great. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to meet everyone in the US and overseas. My name is George Tagg Jr. With GTC 360 Advisors. I am, just by way of background, I have over 20 years experience working inside and outside the federal government and global public policy. I'm an attorney with a master's in foreign policy. Have worked in the U.S. Congress, the State Department, and Defense Department at the highest levels of national security and foreign policy. So I was a diplomat in selling America to skeptical clients overseas. Truly, that's what diplomacy is selling. So really honed my skills there and really got to understand and won awards for navigating the largest bureaucracy in the world, which is the U.S. federal government, to not only develop workable solutions to seemingly intractable problems, but implement those in a compelling and efficient manner. And so really brought that expertise to the private sector and have turned big box consulting on its head in terms of really not faking it, not baiting and switching, and not using low-level junior associates to do true work for key businesses that need the support to capture these contracts to really keep their doors open. So really look forward to speaking with you. And just by way of an intro, I'd just love to hear, has anyone, and you can put in the chat or raise your hand, has anyone engaged in government contracting, either in the US marketplace or beyond? It looks like I'm not getting, we got one thumbs up, but that's about it. So this might be new for everyone, and that's okay. So I want to start and really kind of give you an overview of what it takes to become a government contractor. And at any point, you can raise your hand and happy to field questions. This is only going to be, this will be more productive if you interact and ask questions at any time. We can also reserve time for Q&A at the end, but this is a complex process, and it's multi-stage. But once you get in, I liken it to, in energy terms, a baseload capacity. Government is always on. The U.S. government is always on, despite all the soap opera drama in DC. It is always on, and the most reliable payer in the world. So you can, if you're able to break in, you can capture contracts that are 3, 5, 10 years, or even longer than that, that will withstand private sector ups and downs. So that's really important to have that in your mix if you are a business owner or part of a corporation or any sort of company. The government buys everything from IT to janitorial supplies to drones and everything in between. So the first step in the process is really understanding the process itself, really understanding, where are the opportunities, where do they exist, and where can I hunt for those? And before you get to that, you really need to understand, what are your own goals? Where do you want to go from 2 to 5 years from now? What are your strategic objectives? Where do you want to grow, and what market or industry? And that will help guide you, because really approaching government contracting using a shotgun approach is not effective. You really need to be targeted, especially at the outset, to really understand, because you can waste a lot of time and effort going through the multitude of contracts that are out there. So you really need to hone in on what your objectives are, and then that can help guide where government contracting can do for you. Once you define your objectives, researching the specific agencies that are related to your objectives. So if it's staffing, recruitment, identifying the highest or the top staffing contracts in a specific agency that would be a target-rich environment for your procurement capture efforts. And I'll get to that in a second. And then really aligning your capabilities to what a government buyer is looking for. That's refining your collateral, your language, your value proposition to what government buyers want to see and are aligned with their jargon, whether that's in the United States or internationally. Jargon changes according to administration. We're going to have a new administration coming in, and the jargon certainly will be changing between the two administrations. The policy priorities, despite all the bluster, will largely be the same, but how you approach those and the language you use is massively important, because at the end of the day, these people are really, they're looking for, reputable firms to conduct business and get things done, implement programs inside and throughout the federal government. And they want a trusted company that understands their pain points, their wants and desires, and their biases and their needs. And at the end of the day, they need to sell this to their bosses and get it approved. And those bosses have to comply and look towards things that they're trying to achieve and obtain in certain administrations. So that's just a key thing to watch out for. Just getting started is quite often where people fall apart, because it can be a confusing process, but it's a multi-step process. My company helps companies all around the world, foreign and domestic, large and small, nonprofit and for-profit entities, really navigate this process of registering yourself in the System for Award Management, also known as SAM.gov, identifying and solidifying your NICS codes, your North American Industry Classification System codes, really just product and service codes, to help classify what you do so it can be tracked accordingly within the government. And then obtain your cage code at the end of the day. So it's a laborious, it seems to be a laborious process at the outset, but working with a company like mine can help you really streamline it and maximize it and accelerate it and get it done in a matter of just, frankly, half a day. Really identifying and qualifying opportunities. That's what I was referring to. Once you determine your objectives, you're really understanding of, okay, let's go back to staffing or engineering or architect and construction. What do you really specialize within those industry, large industry umbrellas? It's obviously going to be probably a subset of those. So what is your true specialty within that? And how do you stand out against your competitors, both in the private sector? And then we can look towards how you stand out towards contractors, competitors in the government space. It's all publicly available, but the problem is sifting through those and really understanding who you're truly likely going to be going up against in these pursuits. The benefit of government versus private sector is the visibility, but that's also a hindrance because there's so much information out there. So really, being able to sift through that, that's what we specialize in doing, setting up alerts, really reviewing and developing your pipeline. And a pipeline, just like a garden, is only as good as the last time you manicured it. So it's constant gardening to that, and making sure that you're refining the filters and really identifying and acting upon those opportunities that come. You have different opportunities for that. Request for information, which is basically a sources sought notification, where the government is telegraphing to the public that they intend to put out a solicitation for this contract. And that is an opportunity for you to engage a government agency in particular, to let them know that you exist, and then take it a step further, not only responding to the RFI, but engaging them directly for a follow-up meeting. Building teaming relationships is massively important, especially if you are a new entrant into the government space. So and this builds off of what you're doing in the private sector, having B2B partnerships, will provide dividends on private sector pursuits as well as public sector. But partnering with larger and smaller companies, depending on where you are, if you're mid-market, you want to definitely partner with, well, frankly, it doesn't matter where you are. You want to partner with every group that's not you. So you want to partner with smaller companies if you're large, mid-cap as well. And if you're small, you certainly want to do the reverse. There are many companies that enjoy socioeconomic status from where they are, and so that they receive preferential treatment in government contracting. You can help take advantage of that by partnering with them, where they can serve as a prime contractor, and then you can serve as a subcontractor. Any questions so far before I get into the capture strategy? Okay. Moving forward and developing a clear capture strategy. So once you've identified the opportunities that you want to pursue, really understanding of, okay, how do you stand out from the competition? And very much like the private sector, reaching government buyer. I mean, you want to increase at all times, you want to increase your probability of win, which is um, uh, called P-win. So if a buyer does not know who you are, and from Adam or Eve, then there's your likelihood of success of winning that contract is much lower than if you were to if they were have familiarity with your company, with you, with your competencies, with your skills, your past performance, et cetera, and have even had a prior call with you to really familiarize themselves before the RFP is issued. Once the RFP is issued, it's hands off. The government cannot speak with you, and that is by law, to prevent conflict of interest, collusion, et cetera. So before that time, though, you can engage in what is called capture, and this is massively important. This is the time to increase your P-win from 0 to 50% to potentially over 50% on winning a contract, and it's really, really important. So that's why it's a domino effect, and the earlier you start developing your pipeline, identifying your objectives, the earlier you can engage and capture for an upcoming opportunity. Ideally, this time period starts a year in advance of the contract expiring. I know that may sound like a long time, but it's not, because generally the RFP is issued about 6 months or maybe even 3 months prior to the the contract expiring. So you really may only have 6 months of capture. It just depends on how efficient the government is. Sometimes they even issue them earlier than that. So that's why it's really important to do this. We help map power centers leadership within a contracting office or program office all the way up throughout the entire agency, and engage in a holistic manner on behalf of our clients, even white labeled under them. And we've done this across the United States and internationally as well. So really understanding the requirements as well. This is once the solicitation is issued. This is of paramount importance, and it can be very technical. But it's really reading not only the four corners of the document, but also understanding what the program priorities are within the specific office of that bureau, of that agency, within an administration. So it truly is a Mariska doll, and you have to understand what the overarching top priorities are of the administration itself, of any administration, internationally the same, to really understand the agency's trying to meet those goals, and they all answer back up to the CEO, the president, if you will, through reporting back. And so they want to report progress, success, and it's our job to be that easy button for them, to help them check those boxes of whatever priorities they are: national security, defense, economic competitiveness, technology, advancement, anything, economic development. So to be able to really understand their needs and be able to put that in the proposal itself is extremely important, but also understanding the requirements as well. Who can apply for this grant or contract? What is the scope of work? What is needed? And that helps you actually also. You may have said you qualified a opportunity, meaning you have a go decision on it, that you want to pursue it. But once the RFP is issued, and let's say it's a new RFP that you've never seen before, generally you can see past versions of the RFP, so you can understand, is this something that I can meet in the requirements? So past performance, et cetera, generally are where pursuits fall apart, because they may require, say, for instance, examples of 3 or 5 past contracts with similar services or scope within a certain period of time, within the past 3 or 5 years. That could be a bar to entry for a certain company or companies, and that's where teaming is massively important. And then always checking and being compliant once you're reviewing the document for submission is really important. We have written some of the most competitive and complex proposals, both in the contract and grant side. And we work alongside our clients to develop these proposals so they don't have to bear all of the pressure on their shoulders. They can really engage in a strategic manner and continue to run business as usual. Refining your value proposition is really important. And this is where, gets to strong proposals need to be both compelling and compliant. And this is where the compelling piece comes in, is really talking about your technical expertise, past performance, cost efficiency, and innovation. And these are just some examples of general guidelines of how reviewers look at it in terms of relevance to solicitations and your competitive advantage vis-a-vis likely competitors. And so you can see past performance is high, cost efficiency is very high as well. Those are two, because past is prologue generally when a contractor is looking at this. That does not mean that you can't use private sector experience. You definitely can. The government is often looking for private sector past performance to bring private sector ingenuity to public sector problems. So I would not see that. Do not think if you've never done government contracting, it's seen as a bar or a catch-22. You can't jump over that donut hole. You certainly can, but there are unique ways of doing it, especially in a low barrier of entry, such as subcontracting and teaming. And then going into really, going into the compliance piece, like we were talking about, making sure that you're complying with all the terms themselves, the grant or contract terms. You're really honing in on that and focusing on the submission guidelines. We handle all of this for our clients, and it's very technical work, but that's why it's very important to make sure that you're going after the right proposal at the right time. Strong proposal writing. This is an example of how we conduct our proposal writing, of really, working directly with you, understanding, and being able to convey your strong value propositions, your discriminators vis-a-vis your likely competitors, and really set out a detailed plan from submission date, working backwards, working with your budget, and developing evaluation plans as well are very important to make sure that you are monitoring your own progress, so the government feels and understands that if they're awarding these dollars to you, that they will be spent wisely. Cost estimation, this is really important, and often people leave this to the last minute. This is very important to the government, and it has to match what you're saying you can do. And this is another way of conveying your technical capabilities, of showing the government of, the labor categories, the services, the products that you would offer for a, certain problem set that the government is asking you to solve. So getting to, performance in terms of like really honing in, not on the proposal management side, but really making sure that we're we're detailing the promises that we made in the proposal, and making sure that you can actually carry through on those if you were to win the actual project itself. So that's really important, to make sure that you're matching your promise to what you can deliver. And we often are providing program administration on the back end, because it becomes a good problem to have. You become a dog that catches the car, so to speak. If you win a contract, then you have to perform on it. And this could be very complex. So you just have to make sure what you're putting forward in a proposal, you can deliver on itself. And then reporting comes with this, and then certainly evaluation, which the government is looking at to make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing for sure. Continuous learning is very important, and in making sure that you just stay abreast of all opportunities that are out there, trends. It's constantly a changing scenario for government contracting. Certain trends become in vogue and out of vogue. Certain industries and focal points do. I mean, one that has not changed much is IT. IT is everywhere and continues to be a never-ending need for government contracting, but certain services and certain ways of going about it and certain certifications that you need to obtain are important to stay abreast on. There are government contracts. They call them government-wide acquisition vehicles or contracts, GWACs for short, or IDIQs. essentially a pool of vetted firms that shrink the pool of available contractors. And once you get that certain contract, a GWAC or IDIQ that could last up to 10 years, you're available to then bid on upcoming purchase orders, task orders that come out all the time and could amount to a significant amount of revenue and money in that time span. So keeping abreast of that and being able to know that those are coming, that's what our team specializes in. And then lastly, just really looking at, making sure that you take this in, and I'll certainly share this deck with you moving forward, but really reviewing, just see if you're ready. I mean, that's what we often do. And we often tell companies like, look, it may not be now, but you may be ready in the near future. Having an honest assessment, are you ready for this, is important. Do you have the resources, even monetarily, to either pay third-party consultancy like my company, or do it in-house, or do a mix? Usually a mix is the most effective way because you have someone dedicated to it on the inside. You need at least one person who's really focused on this. It doesn't have to be full-time, but to really be able to run this and answer questions, provide data, provide key information that we simply do not have. And really planning this out, understanding, your yearly planning. This is a great opportunity, great timing right now at the end of the calendar year now to really plan for the future and understand, is this something that you can go after in 2025? And if so, how and where do you want to start? And how do you want to dip your toe if you can? And then really developing that implementation plan and seeking guidance from firms like my GTC 360 advisors. They can help you along the way. We're truly plug and play consultants. That's a benefit of working with an outside consultant. It can help you maximize and it really advance your trajectory in the government space versus doing it alone. That is the conclusion of my presentation. So happy to answer any questions you may have and talk about any steps or any failures, successes that you have had in government contracting.
George, I have a question. So you mentioned that the best time to influence impact in RFI is to talk with the government or the group that writes that RFI, before they get to write it and publish it. So how do you find that, right? Because if you're a company and you have a product or service, and there's an RFI coming up and you can find it on government side, then you can bid on it. But how you find the right people, that write those RFIs and RFPs?
Yeah, so it's generally two things. It's a program office that uses the capability that you're selling, and then the contracting office that just simply runs through the process of developing the RFP, the RFI, and running the review process internally, and then approving the contract, et cetera. They're the administration people. They are as important as the two are extremely important. The program office creates the requirements and sends those back and forth in conjunction with the contracting office and develops the RFP together behind the scenes. They're the ones that really are writing the requirements, and the procurement office is putting it together in the package. So there are many different ways of looking at this and identifying the key people. Generally, the contracting officers, the key people, are listed either on an upcoming RFI or a past or an existing contract. So you can see them, their signatures, et cetera, the core contracting officers representative and others that are listed in the contract itself that we can data mine for you. The program office is a bit trickier. That is, you really have to map, okay, what are these capabilities going to? What office has been stated? Is it been stated explicitly in the RFP or implied? And then we through our desk research and through our connections, dive into that agency, that office, and better understand and power map them. Understand what is their current leadership organizational structure, and who can we best engage in that standpoint. So there's many different ways of getting to them, but ideally you want to get to both the program and the contracting officers ahead or during the RFI process, or if it is an expiring contract or forecasted opportunity, then you can engage them even ahead of time.
Hello, can we ask a few questions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good morning or good evening. Either way it goes.
Yeah.
Well, hello, thank you very much for the interesting lecture. My name is Itai, currently in Israel. I have a few questions. First of all, will we be able to get the slides? It's possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Secondly, do you work with startups?
Yes. Yes, we certainly do.
Okay, and when you work with startups, do you also connect them? Because as you know, startup doesn't have a lot of funding. Do you arrange some kind of collaborations, or can you connect Israeli startups with American companies in order to apply to the grants or the development phases?
We certainly can. And yeah, I mean, it's, I've been in your shoes as a startup, now scale up. And so I understand, any startups are short on cash. And so being able to
Mhm.
pay a consultancy like my firm might be difficult, but there are many different ways of slicing that. And, happy to talk about that, whether that is just depending on what you need and how much support you need. We can certainly explore different options there, but we have certainly worked with startups for sure and connecting them. I often recommend really adopting a very targeted approach of like, trying to get a small win and focusing on the small wins and building it from there, because you're not going to go after a large pursuit out of the gate necessarily, just because you don't have enough time, talent, and treasure dedicated towards that right now. But yes, we certainly have.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is because, for instance, our startup is already with seed funding already. No one of us is going to California next month to participate in the program itself. But for instance, we're looking for collaboration in order to develop the product. We're talking about medical device that will be used, let's say it's for major injuries. Now, in order to pinpoint the needs of people in the battlefield and such, it's good to have the pre-requirements, for instance, of the body that can be the government body that can purchase the product in advance to get his perspective and needs in advance. In order to do that, we need to, let's say, get connected with someone that can give us the guidelines. Okay, this is what we need. What can you give us? And let's say that can they even participate in order to develop the product according to their needs?
Yeah, completely agree. So yes, really, so there are many different ways of doing that, partnering, seeking partnerships with larger companies that may even have a contract to provide those types of devices to the federal government. Usually on the device side, on the healthcare side, there are lists of different devices that so large pharmaceutical and medical device companies go after those. And generally the government likes to do that because then they're not just contracting, one company here for hearing aids or whatever and then another one for this and another one for that. So it really just depends on what spectrum your medical device falls within. And if it falls within, say, a blanket contract with a larger company, your pursuit would really be with them and with the government buyer to convince them to come to the middle and say, we'd like to see more of this. But your real target audience would be with the prime contractor that holds that the blanket purchasing agreement, what have you. We would just need to go into more detail of what that medical device is.
Okay, we will be happy to get in touch and to see further collaboration.
Certainly, certainly. And
Great, thank you.
I can put my email here is info at
Yeah.
gtc360.com, but I will in the chat just put my own email. It goes to both.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
George, another question following the movie about I forgot the name of the movie, of the two guys that entered some U.S. government bids to sell weapons in Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, it is not you're talking about Dogs of War.
Yeah, Dogs of War.
War Dogs, War
So,
Dogs.
so there's,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
can
it's
you
not
you talk about
it's not that
policies?
it's not that well, I can never promise the future. But yes, during COVID and during the Trump administration, it was very much like that, I would say. Very much, seat off the, working like at the seat of their pants, like just pushing contracts out. That's not the way government contracting normally works. Exigent circumstances, like certain conflicts, yes, but potentially, but that's not, you could see how that movie ended. It didn't move. I don't think it ended in a good light in terms of the future of those two guys. So it's not the Wild West necessarily. I don't know if you had a question related to that, but yeah.
And maybe can you talk a little bit about the business model of your company? So, if I have a product, I don't sell to the government, and I'm considering doing it, I don't have any in-house resources, and I'm looking to, engage with a company like the one you represent that does have all the knowledge and experience. So, what type of business modules do you offer?
So we're malleable in terms of like how we build. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a consultancy, so we need to, we would be paid on our professional services. We can never guarantee success. No one ever can in any sort of business development world, especially government, where you have decisions that are beyond your control. However, our success speaks for itself, and you can see our case studies from our website. I posted the link in the chat. If you don't have it, I can send it again. But we've obtained over $560 million in competitive grants and contracts just in a span of over 4.5 years of being in existence. That's because we know what government buyers want and how how their wants, needs, and biases, as I've discussed. So at the end of the day, your company will be better positioned, I can guarantee that, to win government contracts or grants in the future, even if you don't say win the first one that you go after. Normally, you're not going to win the first one. It's about positioning yourself to win the next one, et cetera. So really being strategic on that. And so we can work by the hour, by the project, by a monthly, set of a monthly SOW that's set for say 3 months or per month, where we work and we have a certain set of KPIs that we're meeting to advance your company, whether that's updating your everything from your language, your value proposition, your collateral, your background decks, your refining your services, your products to speak to government buyers, helping you update your website, really your outward facing piece, and then getting you ready to speak to government buyers, speaking to them on your behalf directly, really pitching for them, being an extension of your sales team. There's many different ways that we work, and really seamlessly, but hopefully that answers your question in terms of the cost model that we have. Again, it's not one size fits all. It is multiple models just according to where you are. We even have, and have looked at sweat equity and return for services. That would be very targeted because we can't do that every time, and that would need to be a strong partnership because, as you know, you can't take that on every day. Otherwise, you would be eating IOUs for breakfast, and that is not a good thing to eat. So, yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yep, thank you.
Please, anyone else speak up if you'd like.
Yes, please. My question is, are the procurement processes of the federal government and the state and local entities are the same, or they're different in some areas? And to which area we need to target to enter the US market? Is it better to target the state and local customers in first stage?
That's a really great question. They are different in the sense that each state's are federalized structure, but each state has its own choice and city to use whatever procurement mechanism they want to. And so they often contract with, sometimes they do it in-house, sometimes they contract third parties. It's not uniform. The federal government is uniform. And even now it's getting a bit bifurcated, but typically uses one portal, which is sam.gov. And then but each agency has its own requirements. The pool of applicants going after contracts is for sure smaller at the city and state level versus federal government. Now, a challenge for any company that is foreign like yours, if it is, and not on U.S. soil, is having a U.S. presence and making sure that you can deliver on what you say. Like if from time zone differences to anything else, that you can deliver in the United States there. And so that would be the first thing that, dealing with any foreign company, to put their mind at ease, especially from a city or state level. There are other layers at the county and even metropolitan planning organization level. So there are multiple levels of the onion at the state and local level. But yes, I would agree that getting into government contracting, dipping your toe in the water, going after targeted city or state opportunities while showing that you have a presence either in that state or nearby would be advantageous.
Thanks.
Any additional questions before we close? Well, on that note, on behalf of Paul Mirage and the Mirage Institute, thank you for taking the time today to enlighten our Mirage tribe. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. And please join us next week. It will be our last Mirage talk of the season. So look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you all.